Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Glad that you're here. Thank you for taking the time to be with us as we continue our Bible study through the book of Acts. Acts chapter 4, picking up in verse 15. Peter, John, and the lame man, can't forget about him, have been brought to court, and that after being kept in prison overnight. They have been questioned. Peter gives a response that was given to him by revelation, so thus what we have being recorded for us, not only in Scripture, but we've made this comment at different times, that this is not just a recording in Scripture, but this is also a recording in public record. They are before the court, so this is going down as testimony inside of this process. And so more than likely, if there was any way to find records of court proceedings, then we would very likely find this same account being retold, not just from a biblical standpoint, but from secular historical records, if it was able to be found. So we have the questioning, the response given by Peter, and then we have in verse 15 what follows after the response that Peter gave. When they had commanded them to go aside out of the council, they conferred among themselves, saying, "What shall we do to these men? For that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them is manifest to all of them that dwell in Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it." They are the ones in charge. They are the ones in power. Just as we saw in John's record, that they have to confer, they have to scheme amongst themselves as to what they're going to do so as to not let their power slip away. And they're faced with a problem that really has no solution. And then the question that's shown by this: what shall we do to these men? They are not asking, they're not conferring and coming together in conference to investigate this matter further and get to the truth of the matter. It is a situation of, okay, we got to do something to them. Now, when we're thinking about who these individuals are, now granted they are the Sadducees, but we're wanting to set that to the side and think about the positions that they hold as actually being in this council and in relation to them conferring among themselves. What offices are found inside of this council? What positions?
Is it
The high priest, right?
High priest. What is the high priest supposed to wear? And what is supposed to be in his possession so as to make decisions?
the law?
Well, there is the law, but there are...
The ephod.
Okay. There's the ephod that is supposed to be around him and that he's supposed to wear.
2 stones.
Okay, Urim and Thummim. And it's these elements that he is supposed to confer with the Lord so as to make decisions.
And he's supposed to be a go-between.
He's supposed to be working as a go-between and a mediator between God and the people. Who is conveniently missing from this discussion as to who they're going to confer with? God. They have completely left him out of the picture.
Can you explain the stones to me again?
What'd you say?
Said Uma Thurman.
Oh.
I'm not fully fresh on it other than just what I can remember from casual readings or listenings while I'm driving the bus in the mornings. But it was something that was supposed to be in possession of the high priest, and that when decisions were supposed to be made, so it's kind of the same situation as casting lots that took place in Acts chapter 1. Okay, we're casting our lots to see who it is that the Lord is choosing.
Is this where yin yang came? Like, is that their copy version?
No, not really.
I'm not saying that that's what God's saying. I'm
Yeah.
saying is that them taking their own spin off?
I don't think so, but I don't know. I don't know too much into that. But it's, these were tools that were supposed to be at the high priest's disposal to find out what the Lord's will was supposed to be in situations like this kind of happening. So here they are sitting in positions of power, positions of government, and they're wanting to make decisions, and they're not conferring with God as to what is supposed to be done. And it's pretty obvious as to why they do not want to confer with God, because what would God's answer be?
Don't count on it.
Obviously, God is involved in what they're doing, because that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them. There's no denying what God would say on the matter and who is actually on the Lord's side in this situation because of what's happened. So we're setting God to the side, and that we are purely conferring based upon man's wisdom. Now, as we're involved in going about the work that we're trying to do, what can we expect from those of the world and that hold worldly positions?
They're going to set God aside.
They're going to set God aside, and they're going to confer among themselves. Well, what are we going to do so as to handle these folks?
Bear a sword.
And even to the degree where they would be willing, here they are as spiritual leaders, and that they'd be willing to set aside what God would actually say, what the actual law says. And no surprise, we've seen them do it before.
What your actual position is, you set to the side.
Yeah. Now, you can just imagine with what these fellows are having to deal with, and it's even mentioned in the next part, for that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them, is manifest, not just to them in the council, to all them that dwell in Jerusalem. You know they're wishing that this had been done in a corner somewhere, or done in somebody's house, or in some church building with no cameras on the people to actually show what's transpiring and what's actually taking place. That's a stab at Light for the Nations, by the way. You can watch tonight to find out why. The apostles are working in the same fashion that Jesus worked. Jesus' statement to the high priest when they were questioning him about his teaching: "Why are you asking me? Go ask everybody else. I did not teach these things in a corner. I did not teach these things in secret. Taught them openly." So what ends up being a protection for a time for the apostles is the fact that they have the multitude on their side. So as we are going to go about and be doing different things, and as I find myself involved in government and involved in public affairs, what is going to end up being a help for us is that we are going to have to be as public with what we're doing as we can, so as to hold back unjust individuals, unethical individuals in positions of power. So while the thinking might be, well, okay, we can't be too loud about this because that'll bring too much attention to us. We are cutting ourselves off from a realm of protection. We need to be as loud and as vocal as we can so that more people get stirred up about it, and then these folks have to second guess and question themselves as to what they're going to do next. Because if it gets out, then it's going to cause more of a stir, more of an uproar. I mean, you just look at what's going on in Minnesota and all the Somali fraud, and that's being exposed. I mean, I'm sure it's been in the process of being exposed by all kinds of different people, but now it's falling, the limelight is falling on this one particular person. And the powers that be want to try to do something so as to shut him up. But there's so much attention on this that they cannot make a move on him. Because if you think people are upset now by what's going on, then something ends up happening to this guy, it's going to get people even more fired up. And that's what the struggle is right now with these apostles. Well, what are we supposed to do? If we beat them, what's that going to do to the multitude? What's that going to do to the people? They're going to see the injustice. So that's not going to help us. But even with all of that, trying to weigh it all out, they're still here's evil, still trying to find a way. So then verse 17, well, any thoughts? Questions?
He's not wearing the ephod because he tore it, right?
Turn it up.
What?
Turn it up.
He's not wearing the ephod because he tore it, right?
I don't know that he tore that. He tore his garment.
Okay.
I was thinking the ephod was something made out of gold
Okay.
that had the 12 different stones in it that represented the 12 tribes.
Okay.
And he's wearing that on his chest, close to his heart, and that's the remembrance of who he's serving and who he's working for on behalf of.
That's where the stones are, is on the breastplate also.
Huh?
The stones, the Unin and the Thummim,
Yeah.
whatever, they're on the breastplate also.
I didn't think so. I thought they were.
That's what I just read.
Oh, okay.
It,
But it's New King James.
but yeah, no. But I don't want to argue.
I said earlier, I'm not fresh on it, so whatever you're actually finding on it, reading it, is probably accurate. Pineapple. Okay, was there something else to that?
No, I just was wondering if I wasn't fresh on what the ephod was either.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering if that's why he didn't have it on, or if they just don't care. Or if he does have
No, I'm sure he has it on. They just don't care.
it. All right.
Yeah.
That was it. That's my only thought.
But everybody go home and study it. Well, it doesn't count because I can't hear you.
No one can hear you.
Anybody catching this?
Nope.
Carla?
Start over.
I'm trying. An official garment of the Jewish high priest, which he was required to wear when engaged in religious duties, suspended from the shoulders that covered both back and front. On the shoulders were 2 onyx stones on which the names of the tribes were engraved. Attached to the ephod was the breastplate.
So attached to the ephod is the breastplate. So it's 2 separate. Okay. All right, thank you for the clarification. Now we got that cleared up. Any other comment, question 15, 16 before moving on to 17 and what they actually figure out to do? All right, 17, but that is spread no further among the people. Let us straightly threaten them that they speak henceforth to no man in this name. And they called them and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Jesus. Here's what they're used to doing. We have the power, we have the authority. We will tell them to hush up. We'll threaten them in some kind of way. And I don't know what the threats are, but we know that they're trying. They are used to intimidating people. John 9, and the man that was born blind. We read and studied about the pressure that they put on his parents to try to give an answer. And they were afraid to give an answer. He's of age. You ask him. Why were they afraid?
Because they're going to threaten to do something to them.
All right, but there is a specific something that is...
Kick them out.
Okay. It had already been stated that anybody following Jesus would be cast out. Now, on one hand, on one hand, is that an improper action?
No, but there are steps to that, because that's basically disfellowship.
Yeah.
With the blind man in that situation. And in this situation, it would be similar. It'd be a step before kicking somebody out. But if you're finding out that somebody's teaching what the Bible doesn't teach, then you have to stand up for God's word. But this isn't that case.
There you go. According to the law, if a prophet arises and tries to lead you away from following God, what are you supposed to do with that prophet?
Stone him.
Huh?
Stone him.
You stone him. Now, in this situation, granted, it is a manipulation of what they're actually saying that Jesus was trying to do. But here you have people that are standing up and teaching something, and even there, they're not teaching anything different from what they already knew.
And they're fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. This is all attached to your Old Testament system. This is all attached to what Moses said, while you're at the same time trying to claim that they're leading you away from Moses. How can I be leading you away from Moses when I'm teaching Moses? So with what I'm trying to set up, it still doesn't even fit. But we can see the politics in it. We can see the game that they're trying to play. And it's all a perversion and a manipulation of the position. It's a straw man. You're trying to build something up that we have never said, a position that we've never held, so that you can try to tear it down. And that's still the game that people play. So, this is what they're trying to do here. We'll make threats so as to silence them and put them down. Now, you also have to think about this from the standpoint of the advantage that they think they have. Who do they have standing before them?
The lame man,
And
the apostles,
who specifically?
Peter and John.
Peter and John. What do they know about Peter 51 days before?
He denied.
Here's that same joker that denied him 3 times. We know what he's like. So yeah, we'll threaten, and Peter will fold like a lawn chair. He's going to buckle in a hurry. But that's not going to happen. As we discussed last week, Peter has seen the resurrected Lord, and Peter's not the same. That fear, that cowardice, that desire to try to protect self is no longer there. And that with Peter, you can threaten and do whatever you want to do, but we're not going to stop this. Now, you also notice what it is that they're threatening them with. They called them and commanded them not to speak at all, nor to teach in the name of Jesus. So what's interesting about that?
What's interesting is back up in verse 12, Peter just told them there's no salvation except for in Jesus, but they didn't tell him to stop teaching about anything else.
Okay. This is not a flat-out prohibition that they're not allowed to teach at all. They put some qualification on it. Look, we're not telling you not to teach. Just, don't teach in this guy's name. You want to go out and teach about how people are needing to live their lives and be holy and righteous, and yeah, we're fine with that. But just do not include the name of Jesus in it. So now they're trying to compromise. Now they're trying to make a deal. So you can teach and speak, just not like what you're doing. Teach it like how we're telling you to teach it. But Peter and John answered and said unto them, whether it be right in the sight of God to hearken unto you more than unto God, judge ye. For we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard. Peter's response is, you're not going to stop us. You may be the high priest, but you do not speak for God on this matter. And here, Peter establishes that contrast. Whether it be right in the sight of God to hearken unto you. So Peter recognizes, look, you're not saying this on behalf of God. This is 100% purely you. So are we supposed to listen to you, or are we supposed to listen to God? And for him to say to the high priest, you judge on this matter, is allowing, it's just like, okay, I'm not telling you. You figure it out. And then his response that follows, we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard. This isn't our message. And that sounds exactly what Jesus said. My message isn't my own. I've been sent. And there's nothing I can do except to tell you what's been told to me. Peter stands up and he says, we are going to say what needs to be said. And you can do whatever you want about the situation. But we're going to keep doing what we have been sent to do. Now, while the circumstances are not exactly the same, this has flashes back to the situation with Balaam and Balak. Balak, the king of the Amorites, Amalekites, can't remember. He's one of the two.
One of the ites.
Yeah. He wanted somebody to curse Israel. And his wise men come to him and say, well, there's this guy Balaam. you can go get Balaam and he'll come and he'll curse them. Balaam comes, well, he says it first to the messengers, but then he ends up showing in front of Balak also in Numbers chapter 22 and verse 18. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, if Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. Now, y'all, this is what faith and conviction looks like. They've just showed us. This is the first real testing of Christianity. The first real test of God's people without Jesus being there to hold their hand. How deep is their conviction? How broad is their faith? That Peter would stand up to the highest power that Israel has. And that he would say, you are not going to silence us. We will keep talking about that name. And that's what we're needing to do today. Now we read this without actually being in it, and you know, it's similar to what we see depicted in movies and books that are centered around war. And that you have the Patriot where they're in Charlestown and they're all arguing about whether to go to war, and then the decision comes down, we're going to war, and everybody's hooping and hollering and shouting and excited, we're going to war. And it's just like, you dummies. And then they get into war and things don't go their way. Things are hard, things are difficult. And it's just like, how'd you expect this to go? I can remember watching Gone with the Wind for the first time. And it's the same situation with those Southerners. Oh yeah, we're going to war. And everybody's all excited. It's like, y'all are so dumb that you would be excited about this. And so even for us today, in that we would read this, and yeah, it gets us excited. It gets us pumped up. Don't be dumb in losing sight of how this is really going to be. This is going to be difficult. But we need to stand our ground. And it's not just in these big situations, if we can even label these things as being a big situation. Okay, you may not be pulled before the council, but your boss and your coworker may start trying to put pressure on you. To stop trying to hold certain positions that you hold, and viewing your coworkers in certain ways. From saying different things to them about how they're behaving. What are you going to do then? We need to have this mentality that there's not anything that will make us hush up, be quiet about what the Bible teaches and about what is right and about what is just. No matter what they may try to say about us, about you, how they might try to smear you and bring false accusations against you, we have to know what's right and stand our ground. And we're going to find the kind of result that will bring, not only for the apostles, but the kind of result it's going to bring on the church. So verse 21, so when they had further threatened them, so the dialogue continues, we don't have it recorded, kind of wish that we did, just to know specifically what they tried to do, but anyways, when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them. At the end of the day, we can stand tall and confident in the fact that we are innocent, no matter what they say. Finding nothing how they might punish them because, and notice here again, because of the people. We know their game. They're not really concerned with doing what's right. They're just concerned about how they look in the eyes of everybody else. For all men glorified God for that which was done. For the man was above 40 years old on whom this miracle of healing was showed. So here they are. They're let go. But the intensity is going to increase. It's not going to get any easier from here. And even this concern that they have about the people, okay, they have that concern right now, but even that is going to be set to the side. So while I'm mentioning, okay, here's a wall of protection around them, that wall is not going to last forever. It will help in this moment, but not in the future. And as I said, we need to ask ourselves the question, well, what's going to be the result from this? What is going to be the reaction of the apostles, the other apostles? And what's going to be the reaction of the church? What's going to be the reaction of the brethren after Peter and John have just spent a night in prison and gone to court, been threatened? Because as we said with the lame man, there's collateral damage. This is not just a situation where, okay, the heat is being turned up on the apostles. The heat's going to be turned up on everybody else. Peter, John, you just got their eyes on us too. Verse 23. Being let go, they went to their own company and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said unto them. And when they had heard that, they lifted up their voice to God with one accord and said, Lord, thou art God, which has made heaven and earth and the sea and all that in them is. Here is a good example of what it means to be a member of the New Testament church. What it means to be a Christian and a member of the Church of Christ. And these are elements, these are things that are commonly overlooked as to what it means to be a Christian. When we think about being a Christian, we think about, well, do you wear the right name? Do you wear the right designation? What's your organization like? Are you set up with an eldership, deacons?
We don't need elders.
Huh?
We don't need elders.
What about your worship? Is it in accordance with what God teaches? That's commonly what we have presented to us and what our thinking is about what it means to be a Christian. Those are important. Those are vital. But those are not the only things. What we're reading here and what we studied in Acts chapter 2, here are other things that are part of that character and the mindset that we are supposed to have. And that the understanding is going to be there, or that needs to be in our minds, is that, okay, we're going to face the hostility of the world. The world is going to be hostile towards the church. No surprise, that's what Jesus said. It's to be expected. He told them that in John 14, 15, 17. When he said to them, the world hated me, what do you think it's going to do to you? Jesus did not hide this reality from them. If he had hid it, then they would not be ready for this. They would not stand. And what a shame it is today that we have gospel preachers that have said about me, the work that we did in Virginia, me going to court with the Baptist, and how that hurt the cause of Christ and the church. Cowards. Now, I'm not saying that I'm this superhero. When all that was going on, I was scared. And I'm scared now with stuff we have going on. But I know and I can rest assured that no matter what ends up being thrown at us, and I don't know what's going to be thrown at us, that if we together will hold fast. Peter and John, and they're coming back, and they came back to their own company. They came back to the brethren. And we're going to continue reading. They were not met with hostility. They were not upbraided by the brethren. They found support. We find with the brethren they did not glorify Peter and John. But in hearing what was done, they lifted up their voice to God. And they're doing so with one accord. And that has to be the response to everything done by men, by us, in obeying God. And that we're not doing it for our own glory and for our own prestige, but we're doing it to the glorification of God, that God will be glorified. Now, while the power was in Peter's possession, Acts 3, that's what he said to the man. Silver and gold have I none, but that which I do have I bestow unto you. The recognition that if God had not given the power, they could do nothing. All the way through, they are saying this was done in the name of Jesus of Nazareth. Our mission is to glorify God in obeying what He says. And we are being shown it's not always easy to do. Because self likes to get in the way. And that we start determining and we start trying to reason within ourselves, similar to what the high priest is doing, and that, well, okay, if I actually do what God says I'm supposed to do, that's not going to win me a whole lot of happy minds from the community, from our friends and neighbors, from my coworkers. That's not what we make our decisions by. We make our decisions based upon what does God say on the matter. So as we mentioned, they were let go, they went to their own company. Here they are, and they're back with Christians. They are away from the hostility, the anger and indignation of the world. And here's a lesson for us about what the church is supposed to be for us. The atmosphere of the church is to be totally different from the world. And that while they're facing hostility and anger from the world, here they are able to come back to the church, to the brethren, to find support and to find refuge. Find safety together. But many times it's not like that. Many times you're out in the world and you're trying to make the stands that you're trying to make for God, and you come back and you tell your brethren about it, and they want to point the finger at you. They want to start coming down on you and start shaming you. It's not how it's supposed to be. And then many times, you're out in the world dealing with the things out there and battling sin and error and wickedness that's out there, and then you come into the congregation and you're battling the same thing. Find no peace. Find no rest. It's not how it's supposed to be. And as we're finding with Peter's sermon, he's not making any excuses. He's not out here talking softly to this audience. They are in sin. He's dealing with their sin. And we're fixing to read in the very next chapter of another situation of sin that is inside of the church and how it's dealt, how it's handled. And y'all, it ain't gentle. Now, while we want to have a proper balance in handling situations, the reality still needs to be there that when it comes to handling certain situations, there can be a fierceness and a heaviness with how we handle situations. all this lovey-dovey nonsense that our brethren want to try to do and compromising with people that are in sin, every situation is not handled the same. With some, you can deal with gentleness. But then there's others, you've got to come in heavy. And Paul even mentioned that with the Corinthian brethren. You're puffed up. You got a pride problem. And in chapter 4, he said, I'm going to come and see you. And how you decide to be is going to determine how you're going to meet me. Whether I'll come in with a rod or I'll come in with love, charity. We get this anger and this indignation inside of us with wrong and sin that's committed, and then we don't do anything with it. Now, I'm not saying that we lose ourselves to anger and that we let our anger overrun us. But we need to remember that anger is something that God has put in us. That's an emotion He gave us. And at the end of creating us with that emotion, He said it's good. We studied in Matthew and we studied in John. Jesus got angry. And part of what is going to drive us so that we can stand strong in situations like this, so that we don't cower and so that we don't fear, is going to be that feeling of anger when injustice is being performed. Well, I was about to say I don't know how we got there, but I do know how we got there, and it's contrast. It's contrast from what we're reading here with the brethren, from what we see today with our brethren. For most congregations of the churches of Christ, if you were to go out and do something like this and then come back to the congregation after having that happen, they are not going to be singing your praises. They are going to tear into you. And they ought to be ashamed. Because all they're showing is that they would not be able to stay here. They are not the first century church. And this has to be a part of our makeup. This has to be a part of our character. Next part of verse 23, being let go, they went to their own company and reported all that the chief priests and the elders had said unto them. So here we have it being shown to us on how we are supposed to react to the world's hostility. Go back and you report it. Tell the brethren. Find your comfort with them, because you're not going to get it from the world. And in coming back and giving this report, here's how the church reacts to the hostility. When they heard that, they lifted up their voice to God with one accord and said, Lord, Thou art God, which has made heaven and earth and the sea and all that in them is. Just look at this. Look at them. Look at our brethren. When we face the hostility of the world, do we stop and think about the power of God? in those moments, do we think about the might of God? That's what they thought about first. They're not thinking about the power of the high priest. They're not thinking about the authority of the governing body. They are thinking about the power of God. And Jesus told them to think about this in Matthew chapter 10. You do not fear men. You fear God. But then he goes on in that discussion to comfort them as to the reason why. Now, of course, there's the discussion about you don't fear them that can destroy the body. You fear him that's able to destroy both body and soul in hell. But he does not leave them with that. He continues on, and how does he comfort them? He makes some contrasts. And he brings to their attention, you know the sparrow? That little tiny bird? God sees the sparrow when it falls. The very hairs on your head, God knows them and they're numbered. These things are not happening without God knowing and without God caring. God cares for you more than thousands of sparrows. And as they speak about the power of God that made heaven, earth, sea, and all that in them is, it increases their faith, and it drives fear out of their hearts. These guys, this high priest, he thinks that he's something. But he didn't create the earth. He did not create within us our spirit, our breath of life that makes us who we are. So in the grand scheme of things, he is nothing. God is in charge. We won't have time to get into it today, and that I would say that works to our advantage because it'll give you some time to do study and reading on it if you've not done it already. But then in verse 25 and 26, they bring up David, who by the mouth of thy servant David has said, why did the heathen rage and the people imagine vain things? The kings of the earth stood up and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against his Christ. Where did David say this?
Psalm 2.
Psalm 2. And good job saying psalm and not psalms. Because when you're talking about a specific one, it's just a psalm. We need to take some time in reading that psalm. And that's what we'll start with next week. If you haven't read it already, then I would kindly request that you do that before we get together next time. Because this is what we're up against. Just look at that list. The kings of the earth, the rulers are gathered together. And notice, they're not gathered together against us. They're gathered against the Lord and against His Christ. There's a humbling factor in this. This isn't about me. This is about what's right. This is about what's true. Ultimately, this is about what the Lord and His Christ have said. These were the things that were on the minds of the brethren here in facing these problems. These are the things that need to be on our minds as we face troubles. And we'll dig deeper into that next week. Any questions, comments?
I think it's sad to say how much the church has diagnosed.
Start over.
Unfortunately, it's hard to acknowledge how I see the church has digressed since the first century. In your situation in Virginia and our family situation, it's the brethren who give you the most problems that you were not expecting.
Yeah. Got one from Aaron. Don't sit down.
I think it's kind of important to remember that from the apostles' perspective, Jesus suffered the worst that humankind could throw at them. He was beaten, tortured, put to death, but he was able to come back from the dead. And I think that might have helped as far as giving them confidence and courage when they recognize, these religious leaders that seem very powerful, they're, in the top of the hierarchy, they're threatening us with everything they can, but they don't really have power because, our master, who suffered everything that you are threatening us with, he came back from the dead. Why should we fear death?
And even if they do not decide to bring death upon us and that they just try to make our life difficult, and they can make life difficult. Still doesn't change anything. So yeah, good point.
Do you think that Peter and John were afraid at all?
Oh, for sure.
Was their faith in God so strong that there wasn't a need to fear it?
That's what Micah said earlier. Don't be stupid. Don't be dumb. You have to keep the reality that it's not, you can never achieve that level of, that you're not, even Jesus was afraid. We can't put it into this, like we take love and we put it into Disney love. We can't take this, they had this thing that we cannot have. They stood there just as afraid as any of us are going to be. That's my only thought.
I think on top of it too, there's the mindset that we have that we're always trying to find those shortcuts right now to where, well, how can I gain a six-pack in, not putting in the work and effort? How can I be stronger? How can I be better at speaking without putting in the time and effort? So looking at them, well, they stood there, well, how can I get this bravery without the fear there? The fear is always going to be there. You can't have courage without fear. And so we're in the perfect place. All these men that you look around you more than likely have been through war or a time of near death, most of them at least, and they chose to keep pushing forward. So to look at Peter and John in this aspect, obviously you're going to be afraid. There's the time where we all got the cops. Police called on us with the casino, and you're just standing there like, this is it. I'm going to jail. So, but one of the things you got to keep in mind is, as Micah said, that don't fear the ones that can destroy just the body, but the one that can destroy the soul and body. As long as you keep that in mind and you keep pushing forward, it seems to help a little bit more and more to get that fear to push away slightly, but it's always going to be there. So, as I said, you can't have bravery or courage without fear.
And while you are taking confidence with every struggle and being, so like in this situation, here's Peter and John standing before the high priest, and okay, they've overcome this, and that is to produce confidence in that, well, we've overcome this, we can overcome the next thing. But is the next thing going to be the same as what's going on here? No.
Well, the next chapter is this, but
Right.
no.
While you are building confidence, you do not become too overly confident because you have no idea what's coming next. And that, okay, I got to be ready for anything. And as we said, the intensity it's only going to increase. And like Reese is saying, yeah, you're going to find out what you're made of. So each trial is a necessary element, because it's what James wrote in chapter 1. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, tribulation, trials. Why?
Because it produced patience.
Patience, and patience brings about experience. You'll never really know what you're made of till you go through the fire, till you go through the trial.
Verse 23 and 24, I wanted to go back to that. You brought up the fact that they went back to the church and it's right there, and reported all that the chief priests and elders have said unto them. We get it in our mind that we're not supposed to go back and tell what happened, either for the slander or what's the other word? Gossip and all that stuff. Well, you're not supposed to be talking about other people. I think that gets in the mind, but also this mindset of, well, I can do it by myself. And you don't rely on the church as much as you should. This is there for you. The church is there for you to be able to come to and express how you're feeling. Every week is, if you're needing prayers of encouragement, this thing's there for you that no one really ever takes. But the church is there for you. So instead of taking it on by yourself, you rely on the church like you're supposed to. And that's what the brethren did in the first century. So to have that trust and that faith in the church that they're not going to do what the brethren have been doing is to push you away. It's to bring you in and will comfort you and take care of you. So I think that's lost out there as well because it's been so muddied up.
Mm-hmm.
And we get it in our own mind that, well, I can do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you really can't.
Agreed. Nothing to add further. Your Honor, I'm done with this guy. Okay, anything else? All right, stop, take a break.